We continue, but something very beautiful which I came to know just now, thanks to Sudhadi, that it was not porcelain but enamel vessels, the one in which dogs were normally given food, and so Amalda, playing upon the word enamel and animal, he wrote also that God gave us the divinity in animal balls. The divine gave soup in animal balls. So to humanity. So basically, the word animal, enamel, like playing upon the sound. So he was, of course, an expert at this, playing upon words and sounds. So this was something very interesting I thought we'll share. And back to our bodies, which are an engine cunningly made. Like, it has an expiry date, unfortunately. Whether we like it or not. How much one wishes. But we don't know, it's not good always. If, there were ages when people tried things like, kaya, chikitsa and etc. But even that could push life only up to a point. It has ultimately an expiry date, catches over us. But for all its parts, as cunningly are planned, contrived ingeniously with demon skill, its apt, inevitable heritage of mortal danger and peculiar pain. Who says that the Lord doesn't know about medicines? It's pure medicine. Cholesterol begins to accumulate in the blood vessels from 6 months of age. By the time we become conscious of it, lot of it has already gone into. And look how it finds its way into the blood vessels of the heart, the brain, to make us senile, to make us feel that pain, mortal danger and pain, right from beginning. And not only it has been made with a demon skill, doctors also take great advantage of this. See, if you get a angiogram done beyond a certain age, it's very common to find certain degree of blockages. Very unusual that one will not find it. Because that's how the engine has been made. What one is observing in these blockages is something which is natural, which is happening. So, obviously, whenever an angiogram is done, one has to be prepared. That next he may say 80%, 90% stent, this, that. But and even after angiogram, you have to still change your lifestyle and take the medicine after the angioplasty or bypass surgery. So many people do a little seemingly smarter way. They say, okay, fine, we'll take the medicines, change the lifestyle, sans the CABG. Now, the engine is made like that. Now, another is that if you try to do correct one part, then the illness will creep up in another part. And sometimes it's like a choice. Which is the route you want to go up with? And it's a very difficult route. Like when some of my college friends from AFMC, they were traveling from Pune to Delhi. Suddenly some gundas came into the train in Gwalior. Those days, gunda infested area. And these people also young, 17, 18, military students, medical college. And, one feels on top of the world. And they tried to take on a couple of gundas. So they didn't say anything there. Then on the next stop, suddenly, good number of gundas came. And he took out, their headman took out gun from one side pocket and dagger from the other. He said, which one you want? So he didn't know what a choice. So death often, when I heard this story, so later on I used to wonder that this is how death gives us choice. You want this way or that way, and it's so difficult. So it finds its route. That's how the body has been made. Cunningly made. It's apt, inevitable heritage. We inherit it in our very genes. Heredity. Sri Aurobindo is speaking about heredity. We inherit it. It's payment of the tax of time and fate. Its way to suffer and its way to die. For every mortal pleasure that we derive from life, a tax is extracted. So we are saying, puri was very nice, samosa, lovely. Bit of cholesterol is going into the system. Tax. So after a point it says, well, the only way I can now take the tax is by taking you. For every sweet that you are relishing, insulin is, pancreas is, poor fellow beta cells are saying too much, too much, too much, and one day they say, this fellow is incorrigible. There we have diabetes. Tax of time and fate. They extract tax for every joy. Like you go to see a movie, you pay the money first. So similarly, it happens here. So it's tax. This is the ransom of our high estate. The sign and stamp of our humanity. There is so much humor in Savitri. We think, human beings, we are someone on top of the world. Sri Aurobindo says, this is the ransom of our high estate. Of course, we are kings, but we have to pay heavy tax levied on us. And sign and stamp of our humanity. A grisly company of maladies. See, the queen is discussing every aspect of fate. A grisly company of maladies come licensed lodgers into man's bodily house. Now you see, again, Sri Aurobindo mixes so beautifully contrary emotions. Like the previous passage we had read when Queen says, when Savitri says that I have willed, he mixes Veerras and Shringaras. What to me are lips and eyes of men that are not Satyavans? He has mixed Shringar and Veer. They are two emotions which don't mix readily. And here he is mixing a sad note with something which is really hasya, vyanga. Look at this line. Come, licensed lodgers. These maladies come and we say, no, you can't come. Look, sir, you have given me the license. What karma? Not any other life. This life. Every sweet you took, I have noted it. And after these many sweets, I get the license to enter into your house. Even if you don't do, that's the best part. Some people believe that if they don't take sweets, if they take regular walks, if they do a treadmill every day, they will remain perfect. It's not true. There are people who have died, sudden heart attacks, or somebody who had a heart attack, a very interesting example at 60, whose everything was picture perfect. Every day running, every day, no drinking, no smoking, no meat, nothing. So you see how the disease comes? Because one is doing all this with fear. I shouldn't die, I shouldn't. This stress, at this time I have to go and take my walk. This is my walk time for my health. Don't disturb me. There is no plasticity. So even that becomes a problem. That's why plasticity is so important. But plasticity for us becomes laxity. So, it's such a thing that first day it is plasticity, seventh day it is laxity. So, these maladies come licensed lodgers, purveyors of death and torturers of life. To the malignant hollows, in the malignant hollows of the world, in its subconscious cavern passages, ambushed they lie waiting their hour to leap. This Sri Aurobindo has said in one of his letters, that why illnesses recur. Even that is a habit. So where does the habit remain? In the subconscious parts. So one thinks everything is fine. Now I can celebrate. It says, you want to celebrate? Here it comes. Memory, small memory. You are looking all right. Yes, I had a bad cough. Now it starts. Suddenly at that point of time from the subconscious it pulls up. So it hides. Where it hides? In the subconscious cavern passages. Ambushed they lie waiting their hour to leap. Sometimes somebody else brings them out. Your cough is all right? It's all right. What is there to ask? Ask better things. Are you in the masti of the divine? That's something worth asking. Your fever is fine. Are you sure? Get it checked up. And evening again, there is a bit of body temperature, real or unreal. Surrounding with danger, the sieged city of life. That's how it's described in the Bhagavad Puran. The city of life, the fort with 7 entry points. The sieged city of life. Admitted into the citadel of man's days, they mime his foes and maim or suddenly kill. And these come. Anger, fear, so many kinds of things. Body is made like, it's a coal engine. It doesn't accept even the solar light. It doesn't have solar panels. That's why even when grace comes, if the body is not open and receptive, that's a big challenge. Very often we say, I am praying. Why isn't not? First of all, we should pray with quietude to start with. Not with anxiety and doubt. I am praying. Why God is not giving instant result? Second, he works more homeopathically. The problem may increase in the beginning. So we have to wait patiently. And the third is, the divine is coming, but the cells are totally closed. The body consciousness is closed because we have never allowed the physical consciousness to open. So all these issues are there, which the Queen is voicing. Ourselves within us, lethal forces nurse. Why talk about from outside? You see, very often this body is, because it's basically mentalized consciousness that has gone into it, not the supramental consciousness. So, every body contains within it a certain dose of poison, which is within normal limits. Very often what is good is also poison. Sugar, for instance. Without sugar, we would die. The cells would shrivel up. Because, we need sugar for energy. But cross a limit, poison. Urea, very often we do urea, creatinine. So, certain amount of urea within a certain limit and creatinine is there in the blood. It's the byproduct of metabolism of protein and such things. And the kidney is supposed to throw it out. But within limits, in fact, this is one of the things which probably introduces changes in the genes, but that apart, debatable thing. But this urea, up to 40 is fine. It goes into 60 and we begin to have the effects of renal failure. Creatinine, 1.2 to 1.68, 1.8. And it begins to show up. Now you see, within us we are lodging. We can't do anything about it. It's genetically programmed. It's there. In the system it is there. So there are some poisons which are there. Out of their holes, we make of our own enemies our guests. On top of it, out of their holes, like beasts, they creep and gnaw. Everybody knows anger is harmful, fear is harmful, but we nurture it. We take great pride in saying, I am afraid of this. It's like sign of some high-class society that I am afraid. I have a psychiatrist with me. Do you have your psychiatrist? Like, people say that I have my own accountant, my own travel agent. So I have my psychiatrist. It's become a matter of, pride. So, fear. I am very afraid of this. I can't stand cockroach. It's not something very good. But we seem to love it like a guest. Anger, suspicion, dangerous things. And yet we harbor inside. Jealousy. Jealousy destroys not only the body, it's like a scar on the soul. And we just love it. We drink that poison of jealousy like people drink alcohol, which is so bitter, and feel a high. Human beings love it. We love depression. So these are the things we love. We make of our own enemies our guests. Out of their holes, like beasts, they creep and gnaw. The chords of the divine musician's lyre, till frayed and thin, the music dies away, or crashing snaps with the last tragic note. So we lodge these things as guests. That's the sad part. Who are these guests? Sri Aurobindo says they must be ruthlessly dealt with. They are the enemies of the soul, but we treat them like guests whose names are lust, greed, anger, fear, jealousy, etc., etc. That's how Sri Aurobindo says. That these are the things towards which we have to be harsh. But what we do, become harsh towards others, other human beings, because poor fellows can't do anything. We become harsh towards subordinates. We become harsh towards those who are dependent on us. And Mother said you should be very kind and compassionate towards those who depend on you for livelihood or anything, towards servants and workers. She always used to advise. But there where we have to be harsh, ruthlessly excise them, there we are very soft. What to do? Anger, this is my nature. Everybody has greed. You also have greed. So I also have right to have greed. So we give various justification and nurture these enemies as our favorite guests. And this is the problem. Till this guest, like any guest who stays for long, slowly after a while, he becomes the master of the house and starts dictating terms. And one has little choice. All that we are is like a fort beset. All that we strive to be alters like a dream in the grey sleep of matter's ignorance. So we live, this body is like a fort, but it's built by still these like a fort of ignorance. And yet it is like a fort, the skin is like a fort. And yet surrounding us are all the bacteria, viruses we cannot imagine. Some people start imagining and wash their hands several times. It's not a solution, it spoils the immunity. Mother has said this. This is not a way. We have to strengthen the inner resources, but it's true that we are besieged. Everywhere there are germs. Swine flu is not the only fellow. But the problem is the body's immunity. And if that is not strengthened, that's why, swine flu stays for a year, 2 years. After that, everybody will have immunity. Like now, nobody talks of chikungunya and all these things. 1 or 2 years, these viruses will do. Then, after 10 years or maybe earlier, some new fellow will come. Again, 1 or 2 years, mask, this, that. Again, body immunity. Because all the time we are surrounded with these organisms in our gut, outside, mouth, everywhere. So this is how we are surrounded by a fort. Mind suffers, lamed by the world's disharmony and the unloveliness of human things. This now you see, suddenly he brings in that note of extreme divine sensitivity. The mind suffers. Queen is a sattvic lady. Sattvic minds suffer when they see disharmony around, when they see pain around. So this is the voice of the sattvic person. That how human mind suffers when it sees quarrel, suffering, strife, needlessly. A treasure misspent or cheaply, fruitlessly sold in the bazaar of a blind destiny. Now the Lord is taking us on a more serious note. What is this treasure? Life. But how do we spend it cheaply? People go, drive rashly, try to overtake, get an accident and die. Crashing all the hopes and everything. They drink and lose the aim of life. So many things we do. A treasure, it's a treasure. Life is a treasure. And many other treasure, all that comes with life. Hope and love and faith. But here he's speaking of life. What is life? A treasure misspent. At the end of the day, all that we have with us is bank balance which we cannot carry, and children who are waiting when the old fellow will die and we will inherit the ransom. This is treasure misspent. If you would have used it for something beautiful, everything that life gives, thought, feelings, wealth, prosperity, for something beautiful, at least we would have gone with peace. But we misspent. And spend it where? In the blind bazaar of destiny. See, what is this blind bazaar? We always believe my relatives and we must give more and more only to them. Yeah, they are relatives, this is just blind chance. Blind bazaar of destiny. It just thrown away, frittered away. Here and there, everywhere. Sometimes we give to doctor also. And to the Pandits, we shouldn't forget. So it is thrown away in the bazaar of blind destiny. A person has accumulated great wealth. So half of it is taken away by the insurance, the other half by the doctor, and if something is left, by the errant son. Bazaar of a blind destiny. It doesn't care, it has other plans. That's why the best insurance is divine insurance. Mother was never in favor of insurance. She said it's a lack of trust in the divine. Because then we are relying on something other, so divine will say, all right. Like when a person was in distress, the person called Shiva, Lord, come, come. Shiva got to go. Suddenly he returned. So Parvati, the mother, she asked, what happened? Aren't you going to save your bhakta? No, now he has picked up a lathi and he has already phoned all his friends. They are around him to save him. I have no need. He forgot. He called and suddenly realized that his cell phone is there and all is, in case of emergency, 1, 2, 3, 4, everybody is around. So, but it's very difficult. It's a leap of faith. A gift of priceless value from time's gods. Lost or mislaid in an uncaring world. We think that people care. No, not only the divine cares. We throw our life partying, going here, there. Who cares? Everybody has his cup fill and that's it. So, a gift of priceless value from time's gods, lost or mislaid in an uncaring world. Life is a marvel missed, an art gone wry. So this is how we misspend the gift of life. So the queen, what she is saying is true. But the problem is why it happens. This is her issue. She knows that these are the things. But why such a world has been created? Where all these issues are there. So she has gone 2-3 steps further than what we may question. A seeker in a dark and obscure place. See, this reminds me also of what Mother says, that true security comes from the divine. It's so true. That if we trust the divine, we'll always be safe and secure. And even if difficult situations come, she will carry us through that. But when we begin to trust other things more then we have to go through that process. Divine will still act. But he will act through all these complex processes in which we have lent our faith. So the action becomes conditioned by our trust, because we trust only this can help. So divine has no choice but to maybe inspire the policeman, inspire the lawyer, inspire so many persons. He will still act. But the true security comes from the divine. I hope there is no insurance person here. A seeker in a dark, now he is describing life as a seeker in a dark and obscure place. An alarmed warrior facing dreadful odds. An imperfect worker given a baffling task. An ignorant judge of problems, ignorance made. So our life is like somebody who is suddenly thrown into a forest, dark and wild, has not even a stick, unarmed, and not even a torchlight. Doesn't know about the jungle, and he has to solve the issues. Fend for himself. And there is a very nice joke about this. An ignorant judge of problems, ignorance made. Once Pranab Das said this. Made this very interesting remark. He said, now I know what Sri Aurobindo's yoga is. Somebody asked him about Sri Aurobindo's yoga. He said, first create problems for yourself and then you end up solving them by the grace. Of course, it was said in jest, but so true. Ignorance, which is there. An ignorant judge of problems, ignorance made. We didn't make these problems. Ignorance, the world ignorance created all this. And we try to judge them. And then solve it. We can't even judge it, let alone solving. So someone asked, that in India everybody, sits in meditation and gazing at navel, gazing at the heart and gazing. So ask the person, do you think this way one can solve the problem of life? The person says, I don't know about that, but at least we begin to understand the real problem. At least we know that the problem is ignorance. And then we can find a way to solve it, whatever it be. Its heavenward flights reach closed and keyless gates. Its glorious outbursts petter out in mire. Heavenward flights reach a closed and keyless gate, like Trishanku. Heaven is near, heaven is near. Here is heaven, the door is seen, the pearly gates. No, come after death. Sir, please, that I know everybody will come. I want to be special. In body I have come. Body, get lost. Sir, Vishwamitra, that may be, but my law is out we go, keyless gates. This is the human condition. It's glorious outbursts. So like crackers, that for one moment it's an outburst, but next it pitters out into the mire. That light means nothing. On nature's gifts to man, a curse was laid. Like that famous film Bedazzled. All the boons that are given to this man, the boon is whatever you can ask. The devil tells him, whatever you may ask, you can have it. But 7 times. He says, very good. So he signs a contract. So first time asks that, may I be a very rich man and all. First thing we think is like that. So becomes very rich. So he is so rich, so rich. And because of his richness, he has problems. His girlfriend sees this man is more in love with money than me. So she, goes away. But she is pleasing him. He is surrounded by flatterers. But not one person who loves. So he says, no, I don't want this boon. Second option. The second option, okay. I want to be really a very sensitive poet, artist. That's maybe good. Maybe people will love me. So he becomes a poet and an artist. So then once Gundas come, so he is not able to fight them. So again the loved one goes away. He says, okay, third time, no, this is not perfect. I want to be a strong man. So he becomes strong and everybody is afraid. Like that he goes on. 6 boons are like that. He realizes that it doesn't work out. So now he's very afraid. Says, 7th boon, I don't want to ask. So he says, no, you signed a contract that you have to ask all 7 boons. And after 7 boons, your soul will be mine. So he said, no, I don't want. I don't want to give my soul now. This is the story of the birthright that is being indicated in one line. So the devil says, no, you have signed the contract. You have to ask. Otherwise, I'll torture you. So he gets tortured. Ultimately he says, okay, I'll ask. So he asks something for his friend. So he says, every time I've asked, I have suffered. So he asked something for his friend. And then suddenly the whole scene vanished. And devil says, oh, you're very smart. Take away your paper. Contract is torn. He said, what? I am free. He said, yes, this was the subclause you didn't read. That if ever you ask something out of love for someone else, then I cannot hold you captive. So this is how, but normally we ask, and with every boon that we get, a curse is laid. What we think will give joy, by the time we hold it, gives sorrow. So it's a curse. All walks enarmed by its own opposites. So everything we think, there is no free lunch, there is no happiness without 2 sorrows free of cost. For happiness we buy, but sorrow comes unasked. Error is the comrade of our mortal thought. For everything that we believe to be true, its opposite is also true. Sri Aurobindo says the true sign that the mind has grown into wideness is when you know that every affirmation of the mind, its opposite is also true. So, mortal thought. Of course, a higher thought, it's reconciled. It shows the place of each. And falsehood lurks in the deep bosom of truth. Sri Aurobindo says this so interestingly. I went to a place full of holy men and I got bored there. God sent me to a prison and I found God. He turned it into a trysting ground. It became an ashrama. See what paradoxes are there in life. Even places of truth, falsehood finds its place. And it's very difficult to keep away. One can go right next to the divine and yet be unhappy because one will start looking at the falsehood that is there. On earthly life, it is like that. In supramental creation and in that highest state, it's not there. But on earth, it is mixed. And one has to be so vigilant and careful about this. All walks enarmed with its own opposites. And falsehood lurks in the deep bosom of truth. We don't realize that God has brought all this and kept in His own heart. But we say, oh, I thought divine loves only me. I am a special bhakta. Divine loves that wretched fellow who abused me. He can't be divine. We don't see that. Perhaps that's why he is divine. Maybe. We don't know. So that's how everywhere sin poisons with its vivid flowers of joy. And this has many senses, even in scriptures. That's how the devil twists the scripture. He says what is true, but it's a distorted truth. So even there in the word of truth, there is something which is there. Because human language is like that. Sin poisons with its vivid flowers of joy, or leaves a red scar burnt across the soul. Actually, all these images are not images but truths. At one place, I remember reading the mother saying that suicide and murders are actually like a scar across the soul. She used the word. That, it can be visible and seen. It's such a dangerous thing, and its effect can last for lives. It's such a, what is called as utkat karma, ghor karma. A karma which is embedded right into the soul. That's why one should not ever cut one's life. Virtue is a grey bondage and a jail. Bhishma's virtue. That's why Bhishma Pratigya should be now replaced with Savitri's Pratigya. Savitri's Pratigya ends in victory. Bhishma's Pratigya ends in carnage and death and destruction. So, but it's Pratigya. It's a virtue, tremendous power. Karna's virtue, generosity, gratitude, very nice things. And it turns into a bondage. He bounds himself to falsehood because of a virtue. He has given his word to Duryodhana, so he will not budge even when the divine incarnate tells him that, look, Karna, all said and done, forget about virtue and vice right now, your own rigid ideas and principles. I am telling you, this is how truth is. He says, I can see it. But my virtue is dearer to me. So when virtue is dearer than the divine, then it becomes a bondage and a jail. Virtue is a grey bondage and a jail. At every step is laid for us a snare. So sin is a problem, we know. But even virtue is a problem. And that's why the divine snatches that also. Sri Aurobindo says in one of his aphorisms, when he came and took away my robe of vice, I let it go happily. But when he plucked at my robe of virtue, I was ashamed and hesitated. This also necessary to let go. Alien to reason and the spirit's light, our fount of action from a darkness wells. Sri Aurobindo says in one of his letters, there are three occult sources of our action. We think we are doing things. One is the superconscient, but that is very rare. The second is the subliminal, below the threshold. Many things are there, hidden suggestions. Subliminal is people have done studies how advertisement works. Even when we don't watch it, subconsciously it goes into our heads. And we end up feeling McDonald's and KFC are the best. And the poor dhaba fellow who is, selling odd samosas and has written Madhu Sweets or Ganesh, that is bad. Or that's not worth it. It's the power of advertisement. Hold such a... Now, I am not advertising for... either. But I'm just saying, there is the power of advertisement. They've even found that when we enter a store, we normally instinctively first go towards the right. So, there are places where stores are built like this, that immediately onto the left there will be just a counter. And the best products will be kept onto the right, because that's how we go most commonly. So you see how these things work. Our mind, so subliminal. They are hidden below the surface and we are guided by that without knowing. And the third is the subconscient, darkness. And it wells up from there and overtakes us. And this subconscient can even go on from previous generations. In ignorance and nescience are our roots. A growing register of calamities is the past's account, the future's book of fate. So as we grow through, the number of medicines also begin to increase. What was an occasional medicine becomes one pakka medicine, then 2, 3, 13, 14. God knows where it will end. At least some vitamins. Every medicine indicates, there is some problem. Or not only disease, so many issues, so many problems come in life. We don't anticipate them. We don't want them. But what happens when we look at the past? Growing register of calamities is the past's account. And then she extends it. The future's fate. What's going to happen in the future? Similar things are going to happen. These centuries pile man's follies and man's crimes upon the countless crowd of nature's ills. As if the world's stone load was not enough, a crop of miseries obstinately sown by his own hand in the furrows of the gods. So already there are issues and problems beyond us. Ignorance is beyond us, subconscious. These are things which are beyond us. But on top of it, we'll make a nuclear bomb. We make it. So already there is enough problems. Earlier also we fought with stones. Now stones have changed into bombs. So what is the difference? It's the same primitive fellow. Instead of stones, we use bombs. So we ourselves have created. Already there is world's load of misery. And on top of it, we create. The vast, increasing, tragic harvest reaped from old misdeeds, buried by oblivious time. And it happens at every level. Look what happened to Taliban. Nursed, armed by America. And Twin Tower, the prestige of America has been brought down precisely by that. And now they had to send to destroy what they themselves created. And very often we do it. That's why it is so dangerous to ever make friends with a gunda, thinking that, he will stand by my side when there are gundas. It's a very dangerous thing, but people don't realize it. And they realize it much later. The only friend worth having of all time security is the divine, who will naturally stand by always. He walks by his own choice into hell's trap. We know the story of, again, Karna, beautiful being, but by his own choice into hell's trap. Duryodhana laid a trap for him. All these fellows were trapped. Dronacharya trapped, neatly trapped, and by their own choice. And they had to die a miserable death. What a death for a great warrior like Dronacharya, to be beheaded, unarmed, and die an inglorious death. So by one's own choice one walks. This mortal creature is his own worst foe. Now while she is revealing, she comes to that why blame somebody else? Look at my daughter. She is the one, out of her own choice. Nobody is compelling her. I am not saying that you marry this fellow. Of her own choice, she is walking into what the queen is believing to be hell's trap. She is mortal creature, is his own worst foe. His science is an artificer of doom. Every technological comfort creates a biological amputation. So Sri Aurobindo says life supported by 1,000 medicines is science is gospel. But what happens in the bargain? We lose the natural immunity. So the savage did not have these things but had a natural immunity. Now this is lost. We can't drink normal water and remain healthy. Invariably we'll fall ill because we have lost that immunity. But as children, many of us have taken well water and we have done well. But now we cannot go back to that because science has brought such nice things but ultimately trapped us also into that. He ransacks earth for means to harm his kind. All kinds of weapons that people are trying to make and discover. He slays his happiness and others' good. Nothing has he learned from time and its history. Even as of old in the raw youth of time, when earth ignorant ran on the highways of fate, old forms of evil cling to the world's soul. As I said, we don't fight with stones. That doesn't mean we are not primitive. Sri Aurobindo says that in the human cycle, the Philistine is not something external. He uses a word called economic barbarism. The new weapon. We can crush nations purely by economics. Because now there is such an interdependent. So that's also a weapon. We may not wage an open war, but it's a war. War making not the sweet smiling calm of life. Battle and rapine, ruin and massacre are still the fierce pastimes of man's warring tribes. Then comes that amazing line, an idiot hour destroys what centuries made. Troy. When we read the description of Troy, especially Sri Aurobindo's, Homer also, amazing. What kind of, he says that every sculpture was like as if it was living. What happened to all that? Centuries it would have taken for Troy to reach that point. One day. And it was necessary, but that's not the queen does not know the answer. The question, why such a mighty civilization had to come crashing down? One day, they all slept drunk and let in Odysseus and his men through the Trojan horse. And at night, they burnt down everything. So this is how an idiot hour. And so many stories like that. India's own partition. India and Pakistan and Bangladesh were always one. From way back, far time, Hindu Kush, mountain ranges, the Himalayas. This was the boundary, natural boundary of Aryavart. But idiot hour. And who was overtaken by this idiot hour? Our great leaders, whom we worship and revere. And Sri Aurobindo cautioned, accept the Cripps proposal. No, what does he know? It's a post-dated check. And the split took place. Idiot hour. Destroyed what centuries made. His wanton rage or frenzied hate lays low the beauty and greatness by his genius wrought, and the mighty output of a nation's toil. All he has achieved, he drags to the precipice. So we build great things and pull it down by our own efforts. So we will stop here, continue tomorrow.